On June 28, 1919, exactly 5 years after the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, one of the most important events of the 20th century occurred, the signing of the Treaty of Versailles.
The Treaty of Versailles was the result of World War I. This war was unlike any other due to the participation of countries from almost every part of the world. This war was also large in size in the amount of destruction and number of casualties. This war introduced new technology like submarines, radio communication, aircraft, and poison gas. There was also an increase in production in tanks, artillery, and aircraft. These advancements led to a detrimental war and over 8 million casualties.
The 14 Points was a statement given on the 8th of January 1918. President Woodrow Wilson declared that the war was being fought for a moral cause, and he ensured everyone there would be everlasting peace in Europe after the war ended. The European people liked this idea and found it reassuring, but the Allied powers, especially the French Prime Minister Clemenceau, were a little skeptical. The speech described a policy of free trade, democracy, open agreements, and self-determination. The German army should be removed from Russia, Belgium would be independent, and a League of Nations would be created. The League of Nations would be created to manage independence of all states. It took some convincing of the hesitant Allied powers, especially France, but eventually everyone signed it. However, Wilson became ill at the beginning of the Paris Peace Conference.
The Peace Conference was the meeting at the Palace of Versailles to discuss the consequences of the war. 30 Allied powers met, but the Big Four, Italy, France, Great Britain, and the United States were the ones who were the most important. Germany and other Central Powers were not invited. At the conference, the League of Nations was created, and the Treaty of Versailles was signed. With President Wilson ill, this allowed Prime Minister George Clemenceau to finally voice his opinion that he thought that Germany had an unfair economic victory over France. Germany had caused much destruction to the French industries. Even Marshal Ferdinand Foch, French generalissimo, said, "This is not peace. This is an armistice for 20 years. His comment ended up being very true. The Treaty of Versailles ended up being very one-sided due to the fact that Germany and other Central Powers were not at the conference during the creation of the treaty.
The treaty called for Germany to lose 25,000 square miles of German territory and 7 million people who lived in that land. Most of the land was given to Allied powers. Alsace-Lorraine was given back to France, Eupen and Normandy were given to Britain, and Schleswig was given to Denmark. Germany also had to recognize the independence of Czechoslovakia, Poland, Yugoslavia, and Latvia. Article 119 required Germany to renounce sovereignty over former colonies. Article 22 converted overseas territories to mandates of the Allied powers.
After Germany's land was split up, many German people were now in new formed countries. This made the people angry, and many of them had a stronger feeling of nationalism. When Hitler rose to power, he promised he would regain lost territory. This pleased the people who wanted to become a part of Germany again, and this allowed Hitler to become as powerful as he did.
The goals of the treaty were to make the German armed forces as incapable of offensive action as possible. Germany was restricted to an army of 100,000 men and 7 infantry and 3 cavalry divisions. Civilian staff that supported the army and police forces were reduced in size. Germany was also forbidden to have submarines, an air force, and they were limited to only 6 naval ships. The Navy only consisted of 15,000 men. Article 198 prohibited the German armed forces to have an air force. Germany was also not allowed to produce aircraft material and similar items for 6 months after the treaty was signed.
After Germany lost most of their military and their protection, radical right-wing political parties became popular amongst voters in the 20s and 30s. This included Hitler and his Nazi party. They promised to rearm, reclaim territory, remilitarize the Rhineland, and regain its power. This gave German citizens an ultra-nationalist sentiment and desire to get their country's power back. Voters with these ideas overlooked Hitler's more radical Nazi ideology and helped Hitler become powerful enough to get away with some of the things he did during World War II.
Perhaps the most detrimental aspect of the treaty was Article 231, also known as the War Guilt Clause. Germany had to accept the responsibility of the war and admit to be the cause of all loss and damage. The total cost of all loss and damage was 132 billion marks, which is about 442 billion US dollars today. This was seen as an insult to the people of Germany and their nation.
Burdensome reparations of the war guilt clause led to a general inflationary period in the 1920s. The German currency Reichsmark lost value and an economic depression occurred in the late 1920s. Personal savings of the middle class disappeared and unemployment rates skyrocketed. This led to social unrest and the destabilizing of the Weimar Republic. The Weimar Republic was a federal republic ruling Germany during this time. Also, with the war clause being such an insult, the German people were eager for Hitler to gain their respect back for their country, no matter the cost. The Allied powers had different opinions on the treaty. Britain thought it was greedy, but agreeable. Clemenceau was pleased with the treaty. However, when Foch took control of France, he thought the treaty was too lenient and Germany deserved more punishment. The U.S. people opposed the treaty, and many people wanted to change aspects of the treaty that dealt with the League of Nations. Germany was outraged by this dictated peace. The first democratically voted ruler, Philipp Schiedmann, resigned instead of having to sign the treaty. This led to the new ruler, Friedrich Ebert, having to sign it in fear of Allied military action against them. Many people were outraged and insulted by the treaty. They thought it was unfair that Germany was not present during the conference to decide whether or not the treaty was fair. The treaty led Germany feeling stabbed in the back by the ones who set up the Weimar government. This helped discredit liberal republic socialist parties. People started longing for authoritarian direction to settle the chaos in their country. This ended up being Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party. In the end, the Treaty of Versailles did not make peace. It led to another problem, World War II.
Introduce yourself.
Okay, my name is Felix Edenheimer V, and the military invaded my home while I was working, and I don't like it.
What's your opinion on the Treaty of Versailles?
Oh no, I don't like it. It's an insult to my country. And it is not fair. We weren't a part of the creation of the treaty, so we should not be involved. I don't like it at all.
What happened to your president?
Philipp Schiedmann stepped down from his position because he didn't want to sign the treaty. You are the president, the leader. We look up to you. We're looking down on you now.
What happened after that?
Our new leader, Friedrich Ebert, signed it because he was afraid the Allied powers would take military actions against us. He just did it because he was afraid. And I don't like it!